Welcome to this tutorial on Grounded. This will be a quick overview on how to use the app to best suit your needs. We'll start off with the intro and we'll go from there. So as you can see, we're starting off at the welcome screen. This is more of just welcoming you to the experience of using Grounded. We'll move on to the next piece. Now this piece, after you get welcomed, will be the measurement options. Basically what it's asking here is for you to enter in the different type of scales you might use. So for example, if you previously measured your marijuana with grams, ounces, milligrams, or milliliters, you can select any one of these. The next thing you'll see is the currency that you'd like to use. We have many different options, for example, the euro, US dollar, Canadian dollar, the British pound, etc. Once you have chosen the currency you'd like to use or what you have used to purchase weed in the past, you can go on to the next step. The next step is your usage info. This will help the app get a better idea of how you've been using in the past and will help with analytics for you to see in the future once you start using the app. So the first part you'll see is what your goal is. So the majority of you will likely be using this app to help quit so you can keep it here. Others, however, will be using it to take a tolerance break. So if you're to use a tolerance break, you would come here and select the different options there. And then finally, others may not be ready to quit yet, so instead they'll be using it to track their usage, so you can choose that option here as well. But we're going to mainly focus on the quitting aspect of the app, and if any other users would like to learn more about the other options that you have, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help make another video for that. So the next step after choosing your goal is to choose your main usage method. So as you can see here, we have many different usage methods here. You can use bowls, joints, bongs, edibles, etc. Once you've decided which your main usage method in the past has been, you can go on to the next step, which would be how often do you smoke per day or use weed per day? Maybe you use it 3 times per day, 5, things of that nature. You just enter that here. So we have, once again, a better idea of how much you're using so we can use it in the analytics for the app for you to view later. The next step would be with each time you use, for example, let's say in our case, we're using a bowl, how much weed do you put into that bowl? It could be 0.2 grams, 0.4, 0.5, a whole gram for each session. You would just have to enter that in here. So for example, if you're using a gram, you would just come over here and enter 1 gram. It's denoted and separated by a point, so 1.0. You could also do, for example, 1.5, or if you're just using, like previously, 0.3, you would then enter that here. The next part of this is the price per gram. So this is once again used for analytics for you to see later for your improvement. And I'll explain this in a little bit later down the line. But here you'd enter in how much you use or how much you spend on the marijuana that you're using. So for example, in some places that could be $10 per gram, or in other places it could be 20. You would just enter that here. And once again, you can also enter in decimal points as well. So you could also say, for example, 20.5 or 10.5, once again, separated by the point. Now the next part is how often you use, or like the amount of weed you would use per month, or just in general. So for example, if you consider yourself a low marijuana user, you could then enter this in here as low. Or if you are a semi-frequent person that uses marijuana, you could enter that in here. We offer a description to give you like a general idea of what you might put yourself in what category. And then finally you have, for example, high. So for example, here it says you use cannabis daily to multiple times a day. So from there, we'll just click save once you enter in all that information. Once you have all that information, you will then set your quit date. So here you'd have the specific date, and then you can also put in the specific time and change that up if you like. If you aren't quite ready to quit, maybe you're tapering down or something of that nature, you could even put your quit date into the future, and then instead of it grounded counting how long you have quit, it would be a countdown to your quit date. So for example, maybe you decided to put in, let's just say in this case right now it is January 29th. So let's say I wanted to quit, for example, tomorrow. So I put in January 30th. It would then, once I finish saving this, it would then show a countdown for, like, for example, 24 hours until my quit date. And then from there, once you hit the quit date, it'll then count how much time you have abstained from using weed. But in this case, I'm going to put in just today. And once I hit save, you will then see the main page, which is essentially a timer. As you can see, it says you've stayed grounded for, and right now it's saying 1 minute and 15 seconds because of the time that I entered in the previous step. Now, as you can see here, there is an acorn and a check-in button. Now here, you'll see over time, as you progress and you abstain from weed, this acorn will eventually grow into a full-grown tree. And the longer you quit, the longer you improve. It'll be a symbol for your progress. And as you can see here, other than the main page, there are multiple other tabs here, and there is over here a menu. We're just going to go over the main tabs right now, and then we'll come back and discuss the different parts of the menu. So as I've already explained here, this is the main page where you have the timer and shows how long you've stayed sober from weed. The next part of this, and it's also the part of the reason why you entered in some of that usage info, is the statistics. So once again, you can see here in the stats page that there is a timer as well, so you can just see how long you stayed sober for. And then the next part, which was pretty cool, is also how much money you have saved. So the reason we asked previously how much you spend and how much a bowl you use, or how much weed you use during a day, or how many times you use it, is so that we can calculate theoretically how much money you have saved over time if you have stayed sober and not used weed. The spend section is if something may have happened, you will see maybe how much you have spent, which will then detract from how much you've saved. If you'd like more information on that, please feel free to reach out to me about that as well. Finally, as you can see here, there's also the progress of how much weed you haven't smoked as well. So like I said previously in the usage info, we use that information to track theoretically how much you may have not smoked over time. So how many bowls you might not have smoked, how many grams you might not have smoked, things of that nature. Now on to the next piece is the health section. Now the health section is essentially just a part of the quitting process. Basically, when you quit marijuana, it's likely that you're going to go through some withdrawal symptoms, and we have listed them out for you, the most common ones, so you have a better idea of what you might be facing. In addition to that, we offer a timer, essentially, one, explaining the symptom, and then two, a countdown for how long the symptom may last for you. And once again, we entered in the usage information. For example, if you remember, we put in low, medium, or frequent user. That was because based on the information you put, you'll get a calculation of how long a withdrawal symptom may last for you. And then another piece of this is we've also offered in some tips that you can also look at to maybe help alleviate the symptoms while you're still experiencing them. So this is a pretty cool section. If you have the chance, you should definitely check it out. The next section, and I want to skip, we'll go back to entries, but real quick, because I explained once again the acorn, I do want to show you kind of the progression of what happens the longer you stay grounded for. So in the achievements section, you'll see that each day has a specific trophy or a specific icon. So as you can see here, day 1 you'll get a trophy, day 2 you'll get a trophy. However, if you get to a week of staying grounded, you'll then notice that your tree or your acorn will eventually change its shape. And it's signifying over time that you're growing and that you're improving, and therefore the icon will then kind of give you a symbol of your growth eventually until you hit the point of becoming a full grown tree, which you'll see the progress that you've made in both your life, your health, things of that nature. Right now you see that these icons are grayed out. That's because you may not have hit that step yet, but once you do hit the step, you'll be able to click into them and see your award in its full glory. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick so you guys get an idea of how that works. The next step is the entry section. Now, this entry section basically is kind of like a journal or kind of a notebook, a workbook for you to see and explain your progress over time. So I'm going to go real quick. And the other thing I want to note here is that you can either press the plus button here to come to the check-in section, or you can come to the main page and just press check-in here. Now, to speak specifically about the check-in section, basically what you have here is kind of like each day, or whenever you feel the urge to smoke, you can come over here and check in and say, did you smoke? You can enter in yes or no. If you say no, you can then go on to the next steps. But if you say yes, it'll ask a little bit of additional information. For example, how many grams you smoked or how much you spent. Now, as I said earlier in the statistics section, if let's say I put in 10 here, you would then see in the spent section minus 10 because you'll be subtracting from the amount that you saved. So now coming back here, let's say that you did say no. The next section is times you've had urges to smoke. Maybe at that moment, let's say in this specific case, I've had the urge to smoke 1 time or 3 times. You could enter that in here, and then you can then explain how intense those urges are. Are they very intense? Are they not intense at all? You can then choose where you want to put that here. The next part of this check-in is the trigger information section. So the trigger information section is good because then you will eventually get a better understanding of like how you're feeling, if you aren't smoking, or in addition to smoking, what are the other things that you're using to kind of get over the feeling that's causing you to smoke. And then finally, you'll also see who you're with. Are you alone? Are you with your friends? Are you with total strangers? The idea of this section is to just get a better understanding of each time that you smoke, why are you doing it? Are you angry? Instead of using weed, did you decide to drink alcohol? Or did you decide to do something positive like exercise instead? And then finally, did you do it by yourself? Or did you end up doing it with friends? You can enter that all in here, and then the longer you check in, you can see specific patterns as to why you may feel the need to smoke. And if you understand why you're smoking, then you can find ways to combat that feeling or to understand yourself a bit better so that you can use healthy outlets to avoid doing it altogether. So that's this section. So let's say I entered those pieces in. Finally, you can enter in the date. Maybe you forgot to enter in on previous days your check-in entries. So you could go back in time, or you can just leave it here. So that's pretty quick just to explain that. And then finally, the final part of this is just the notes section. So you can use this kind of like a diary to explain what's going on within your life and maybe what's happening. Maybe you just wrote, I felt sad today, or I felt angry. You could just you can use it pretty much any way you want. You can just be like, oh, this is how my day went today. This way, you'll just have a better understanding of like what's going on in your day to day life. Anyways, once you finish entering that in, you can then save it. The other thing that is involved with this app is streaks. So the more you enter in the journal entries or the check-in entries, the higher your streak will become. And then one cool factor within that is each time you enter in a check-in, you will receive a tip and a quote to keep you motivated and going on your progress. And if you like, and as you can see over here, once you enter in an entry, you can see essentially the note that you wrote, and then if you did not smoke that day, or if you did. So let me make another entry just saying in case that I did use marijuana that day. So maybe I put in 5 grams and spent $10. And I had the urge to smoke 4 times that day. You will now see another screen, which is basically just the next steps. It'll give you a quote, and it'll give you the option to either change your quit date or not to change it. It's really about what motivates you. Basically, this app isn't to dictate how you want to experience it. It's just to give you all the tools you would need to progress. So in this case, maybe you don't want to change it because seeing your improvement over time will keep you motivated to not try to use marijuana again. So maybe you'll just enter in don't change quit date. So it'll stay the same. But now you can see, okay, either I did use marijuana at that time or I didn't. So those are kind of like how this works. The other thing I want to explain here with the entries as well is you can really use it in any way you would like. So you could either enter in check-ins or entries every time you have the urge to smoke, or if you don't feel like doing that, you could just at the end of each day enter in how many urges you had to smoke, and then like to get the general average of how intense it was that day. Or as I said earlier, you can just do it every time you feel like checking in. So really, it's up to you how you want to use this section. And once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and we can answer those. So now that I've gotten over all the different main sections of the app, I'll go over into the menu section. So in the menu section, we have a library that we work on adding information for you to learn more about, how to quit. As you can see here, there are things like activities to do instead of smoking. You'll see a THC calculator. That's kind of for those people who maybe are trying to quit because it's mandated by a judge or because you're getting drug tested. The THC calculator will just give you a calculation of, based on certain inputs, what would be an estimate of when you'll have THC out of your system. Here's in a community section, which will kind of give you other communities because if you want to search on the internet, you might not have the easiest time finding communities. So here is just a list of communities you can go to speak with other people who have had similar experiences as you. But that's generally what the library is. The next piece is we have our own community where you can go and get help with other users who are going through the same experience. I'm not going to go fully in here because I'd like to keep users' privacy private. But here, as you can see, you have a profile here. You can see previous posts that you've made. If you follow other users, you get to see over time what they've posted. Specifically, we have a quit weed community and a tea break community. So if you're trying to quit weed, you can come into this community section over here and you'll see many different users posting about their experiences, talking with each other, supporting each other. So if you're looking for something like that, please come to the community and speak with other people with similar experiences. The next piece we have here is the quit guide. So basically, The quit guide is basically just an overview of what the process of quitting weed would look like for you within this app. So there's an overview of the process that will show you kind of like what each step will look like as you're quitting. The next piece is kind of just at each phase, there is like a kind of like a tip with different tools you can potentially use to help you through each part of the process. And then finally, here's just kind of the self assessment to see how much weed is impacting you in your life. You could take the test here, and it's a pretty self explanatory part. But once again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Here, you'll see that we have a countdown of how long it may take for you to feel strong enough to not have urges anymore, what the whole quitting process would entail. So you'll see over time, as this countdown gets lower, this is kind of like a progress bar, and eventually you'll graduate to having all the tools to feel comfortable with quitting weed and not feeling the need or the urge to go back to it for whatever reason you may have. Now, the next section in this is the entry insights. So here, basically is kind of like some more analytics of basically once again I was talking about the entries that we were talking about. So the more you enter in entries over time, you'll get data about maybe the urges and intensities. So this is kind of like a chart, and because I didn't put too much information, you won't see too much here right now. But maybe on like a week ago, you might had very high urges, and then a week later, your urges might have decreased. And it'll just show you a progress of like how that process has been going for you. And then, as I mentioned earlier again, and I can go back to this piece, just to review that again, as you can see, this urges and intensity part, you see the number of urges. That's kind of like the graphical representation of that. And then the next piece I wanted to talk about are the how you are feeling. Did you use anything to cope, and who you're with again? Just wanted to show these so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, when you come to these different sections, you'll see a pie chart, and it'll show you predominantly what the main emotion is that you're feeling when you have the urge to use marijuana. Same thing with how you cope. You'll get a general idea of maybe 75% of the time, instead of smoking, you end up doing yoga or something of that nature. It's a pie chart. Finally, you see this who you're with. It's once again a pie chart of maybe 88% of the time you're alone, but 22% of the time you're with, or 12% of the time you are with your friends. So you kind of get a better idea of why you may be using marijuana. The last part of this entry insight is kind of like weekly reports. So if you enter in your entries daily, at the end of the week, it'll be compiled into a weekly report that show all of these information, but like on a weekly to weekly basis. This is just an overall look at how of what is happening with you overall in general. So once again, if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out. The next section of the app is the motivational. So every day you'll get a different motivational quote or a tip or something of that nature. As each day goes on, this section will get filled up with previous quotes that you've had, so you won't lose track of them. You can just read them and you'll get some form of motivation or help from them. The next section is, we'll go once, each time I've been talking about feeling free to contact me. You can press this button, and essentially, because this is a simulation, it doesn't have the same effect. But if you're using your iPhone, if you click on this button, it'll pop up an email that you can email the grounded support directly, and I can help you with any issues you might be facing. Now, the final piece we'll talk about is the settings section. Basically, this is kind of just if you want to make some changes to the configurations you've had previously. Maybe you want to just change your quit date. You can enter that here. So instead of maybe previously, which was today, you could maybe say that you want to change it to the 31st instead. Same thing with time. The next section is the usage info. So this was the information we filled out at the very beginning of this tutorial. You can come here and make changes here if you'd like. Same thing with the currencies. If you want to just completely start from scratch, you can choose to reset all the data that previously was in the app. So that would remove the entries you've written. It would start you right back at the beginning of the process that we were at earlier today. And then you could just start fresh. And then the next section is about notifications. You'll see that we have different notifications and reminders. Maybe you want to turn them on or off. So for example, every day you'll have a check-in reminder. You'll get a notification about the different achievements you've had. Every day you'll have a reminder of motivational quotes so you don't forget. And then finally, whenever there's a progress report, you can also be notified about that. You can turn these on and off, and you can change the different times of when these things occur. Here is login access. You can turn this on and off. Maybe you don't want people coming into the app without your authorization. If that's the case, you can get a PIN code set up for you, and then people won't be able to access the app without that PIN code. And generally, that is generally it. This last piece is restoring your username for the community. Maybe something happened in your phone and you lost some data. So if that were to be the case, we could help you recover that information. All we would need to do is to restore your username. So you could reach out to us and we would help you with that. But in general, that is an overview of Grounded and how to use it. So I hope that you found this helpful. And once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This would be the easiest way to do so, coming to Contact Developer. And once again, thank you very much.